Today we're back on the 8.1 project, and I've made a decision about what to do about the bottom end. Basically, the short version is we got a junkyard motor that's seen a bunch of abuse. I tore it apart last time and found there's a couple of bearings that are a little bit beat up. Not a big deal, but I figured out what to do about it, and don't worry, we're not going to do the sloppy sand. We're not just going to close our eyes and put it back together. We are going to fix the problem. Not that it is a problem, because realistically I could put it back together and probably it would run for a very long time, but that doesn't sit right with me. Anyway, that's a whole other conversation. Today I'm going to take care of the ring gap. That's one of the things I want to do. First, verify what it is, and second, open it up if need be. But the big challenge, the big to-do list is on the cylinder heads. This donor engine came from New Hampshire, a very rusty environment, and we have 4 exhaust studs that are still intact. They probably still would work, but they're very, very rusty, and I want to replace them with brand new hardware, which means we got to extract them. I got this side already done. Luckily, there were only 2 that were seized in there. I got them out. We'll show you that process in a second, but I also got the head cleaned up, the deck surface cleaned up, and then did a whole bunch of unnecessary work with a carbide burr, just kind of porting off all the casting flash to help the oil drain back a little better, and just to help my OCD not be quite so bad, because I hate the way that it looks, so we fixed it. Also, I think technically that'll make for a stronger part by removing all those little stress risers. But anyway, this is what it looked like before. You can see down there, just all those like sharp, jagged edges where the 2 halves of the mold come together. So I'll do the same thing on this side. So let me show you the process. Before we get to the action, I want to talk to you about the sponsor of today's video, which is Solderstick. I really appreciate those guys sponsoring the channel. They have some really cool products that you need to check out, especially if you do any sort of wiring. And there are 2 products that I keep on the shelf at all times are number 1, the heat shrink butt connectors, and number 2, the heat shrink ring terminals. Now, the great and awesome thing about these is you don't really need any special tools other than wire cutters and strippers to make a permanent and long-lasting wire connection. Basically, all you do, strip the ends off the wires, slide them inside the solder stick connector, and apply a little bit of heat from your favorite source of, well, heat. And around the 4th of July, that could be a firework or possibly a candle, campfire, hair dryer, lighter, I don't care, you know, heat gun probably, a little butane torch, but however you want to heat these things up, basically that little solder band inside is going to melt and flow in between the strands of the copper wire, creating a permanent connection, and then the heat shrink on the rest of the connector is going to create a weather-tight seal. So they're simple to use. This kit right here has, I believe, 500 pieces in it. It works from 10 gauge on the big side all the way up to 26 gauge on the small side, and a similar range for the ring connectors, 10 gauge all the way up to 22, several different sizes, and once again, heat shrink to make sure you have a weather-tight connection, because the last thing that you want, especially if you're wiring underneath the truck, is to have, you know, moisture and dirt get inside that connection and give you problems later on down the road. So if you want to learn more about Solderstick, which you really should keep a set of these in your shop, under the seat of the truck, or just handy for any sort of wiring repairs, check out solderstick.com and use the code LT20 to get 20% off your order. Once again, solderstick.com, code LT20. So there's a total of 4 studs on this side that we need to get pulled out. There was a 5th one that was kind of jammed in there, but luckily I soaked this with PB Blaster for a while, and this one I was able to just wind out because they got the little like inverted torch thing on the end there. So this one came out. These 4, you got to twist them hard enough where they're going to start to, well, twist off. So first thing I'm going to try is just apply some heat. If that doesn't work, if they do twist off, we'll do the whole weld the nut on there to grab it. Sometimes I'll actually drill down through the center. We'll see what technique works. We got a variety of methods we can use, but hopefully all these will come out. This one though, it's crooked. Somebody probably broke this off a long time ago and had to fix it, and they did it in the truck. And so this is way crooked. So this one, I don't know, I might like grind it off flush, drill a new hole, put like a helicoil insert or something in it to try to straighten this one out, because I don't like that. But hopefully these 3, hopefully they walk right out. Wish us luck. Does not want to cooperate. Yeah. Got it. Don't want to jinx it, but we're 2 for 2. Come on, we're almost there. Yeah. Success. Three for 3. Well, we are at a bit of a crossroads right now because I have one stud left in the cylinder head, and I left this one for last because I wasn't, and still am not, entirely sure what I want to do with it or the right way to fix it, because somebody else has already tried to fix it and they botched it. And this is not like when I say somebody else, when it's me. This happened before I got this engine. This stud right here evidently was broken off. They probably had an exhaust leak. And if you put a good stud in beside it, you can see the big problem. The angle is considerably off. And also, not only is it angle off, but it's shifted down a little bit. And you can see, oh, I'm tangled up. Oh, come on. All right, you can see, where's my little poker? Right there, that's kind of like where the old bolt must have broken off or something. And it was probably in the truck. They were reaching in through the fender well. They probably just took a drill and rammed it in, tapped it out, and it sort of kind of works. But the only reason I don't like this is because it's not going to clamp evenly on the manifold. So if I put the gasket on and kind of line up most of the holes like so, you can see that basically we're just kind of touching the back edge and there's a big gap at the front. Anyway, I want to fix this. I don't like it. That's what it comes down to, because this in theory would still work just like it is. If I was worried about this stud, I could probably back it out like I did all the others and put a new stud in, but it's crooked. I don't like it. So here's what we're going to do, for better or worse, and I might regret this decision in a few minutes. I'll let you know. I'm going to cut that bolt off, cut it flush with the surface. I am going to attempt to drill and put a helicoil insert in. But the trouble is I'm going to be drilling between 2 bolts. This one and the original one, which presumably is still stuck in the head. And then, I don't have a drill press, but I am going to also attempt, when I put the new insert in, I'm going to attempt to make it straighter. So, just for the record, full disclosure, that's what it looks like currently. Maybe I can get it better. Maybe I'll regret it. We'll see. So look at how far off this hole is from where it should be. This gasket is actually pretty dang accurate. All the other bolt holes pretty much are, centered. And this one, yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm doing this. Maybe. So I made a little mark on the bolt right there. That's where I need a drill. That's where center should be. And that's what's gonna make this so tricky, because there's one bolt in the head, the new stud that I just cut. The original bolt is still in the head, and I'm gonna try to drill it, and I'm gonna basically be drilling in between two bolts, which may or may not work out very good. So I'm gonna start small, obviously. I'll center punch it to try to get as accurate as I can, and then the challenge is just making sure I drill square to the head. So that's what we gotta do. Wish me luck. Now we're committed. Put this stud in here just to kind of give myself a little reference as far as where plumb is. Now I started this project thinking I was going to just use a standard helicoil and everything would be a-okay. But my heart sank when I drilled the final drill size for the M8 helicoil, because I realized that both chunks of the original bolt had basically got dislodged and I was left with a bare cylinder head, which on one hand is good, but on the other hand it's actually pretty bad because they had two holes, and this is the final size. You can see, maybe you can see, it's kind of hard to line up the light, but there's one hole drilled that way and another hole drilled that way. So a standard helicoil for the M8 thread size that's supposed to be just wasn't going to work. So I was like, crap, that's kind of a, what do they call it, like a wrench in the works? Anyway, not a good thing. So I got to thinking, how am I going to do this? I started looking online for larger thread inserts, and then I remembered, oh yeah, I bought a shop and it was fully equipped. So over in the corner in the blue cabinet, I remember that we had a really cool thread insert kit. And guess what? It just so happens to be the exact M8 by 1.25 final thread size that I need to repair this hole. And it actually has a big enough insert that I think I can clean that up. So it'll be basically a like new install, sort of, a repair, call it. So there's actually two kits. This was the first one. And this is the first one that I found. I saw M8 and I was like, oh shoot, this is gonna be perfect. But the diameter of the insert is not much bigger than the M8, so the hole wasn't quite gonna fully cleaned up. But then I realized I have this one, and they actually call it, I'll show you what they call it so you can, it's called Big Cert. That's the part number. No idea where you get them, but check it out. There happens to be 3 left, and again, like perfect luck, because that's the M8 by 1.25 finished size, but it's much larger, so I can now drill that guy out there and install this insert, something like that, so I won't have to put an oversized bolt in, and it should clean up all the material in that hole, or at least like 90% of it, so that insert will have really good thread engagement. So this is going to be, this works out perfect. The kit actually comes with, it's pretty neat. I've never used this before, but I'm glad I found one. It comes with this drill bit here that has, focus, a little shoulder on it and a little collar so you can set the correct depth, which I already went ahead and got this set. And as you can see, that's big enough where it's going to allow me to clean that hole up really, really nicely without going too big, because I did check the other side through the water jacket. The wall is fairly close, but we won't be going any more that way, which is the way the original bolt went. Anyway, I'm sorry I'm so excited. This is a cool thing to find. It's like a last minute, because it's 4 o'clock on a Friday. I'm like, shoot, where am I gonna? Anyway, so it comes with the thread tap. It comes with the installer tool with an insert on the end already. And this guy, this is just a neat little gauge that you set on here. So as you drill and tap, well, I guess just as you tap, you make sure that it's perfectly square to the, not deck surface, but the flange surface, which is the whole reason why I'm doing this in the first place, because the previous guy screwed up and put the bolt in crooked. So, I'm really happy now. Let's see if this works. So this should drill much easier now. That is just cast iron. There's no steel bolt left. All right, so it didn't 100% clean up the hole, but it is, I feel so much better about this. There's just a teeny tiny corner of the second hole that somebody drilled. And so with this big tough insert in there, this is gonna be perfect. I have no worries, and I'm so pumped about this. This is awesome. So there's a little shoulder on there that stops this from going in too far. That's what that little shoulder on the drill bit was for. And just want to make sure that I'll go down below the surface so it won't pop up the manifold, which it doesn't. So now all we got to do is tap the threads and we're good. So use this guy here, make sure it's nice and square, basically. I am going off book a little bit. They do not say to use thread locker on this, but kind of makes sense to use it, I guess. We'll see. All right, last step. So I guess this tool here kind of like flares out the bottom or something to kind of lock it in. So they say just keep going until it either starts to go easy, which it's getting a little easier now, or until you get to your depth mark, which is a couple turns away. So I guess that's bottomed out. Now I realize this is something pretty simple to be so excited about, but I am so pumped right now that I remembered we had that little kit, that it went in almost perfect. And now I have no worries at all about the cylinder head. I was thinking about using the helicoil at first because that's all I thought I had. I don't love helicoils. That's the truth. They're basically just a little coil spring that's wound up. And they would make a great thread repair if you had like a perfectly straight hole. But because we had two holes at different angles, the helicoil, I think it would have been better than nothing, but when those two bolt chunks came out, it went out the window. So I'm so happy that I remembered I had the insert kit. And let me show you the finished repair. We'll show you how straight it is in a second. But basically, that's what it looks like when it's fully installed, if the camera will focus, come on. So it's just a little bit below the surface, so it'll be nice and flush, and it's pretty dang square or perpendicular. So we'll get that one threaded in. Let's see what we got. So it's definitely not perfect. It's a couple, maybe a degree or so off. You can kind of reference the front to the back. But, you know, the only way I could get it any closer, I think, is if I had like a milling machine or a drill press or some way to 100% dead nuts, you know, accurate, get that thing straight. I'm so happy with how it turned out, just for a hand drill and basically eyeballing it and using the guides that they had in the kit there. So I am so pumped. As far as alignment goes, it's not perfect. And the main reason there is because when that guy goes there, because when I was drilling it in, there was, you know, a bolt there, and a little bit of cast iron. So I wasn't able to get the bolt drilled perfect. But if we get that installed there, oh, that's not how it works. That's not how it works either. Manifold side, like that. All right, so the gasket's pretty dang accurate. And as you can maybe see, We're not perfectly centered with the gasket, but that's okay because this is the hole that it goes into on the manifold. For whatever reason, GM made those holes like giant compared to the size of the bolt. And this one is even bigger, but they had one that was drilled like perfect, the rest of them really large. Anyway, the main concern that I had was, number one, I wanted to put in a new fastener. Number two, I wanted the nut to clamp perfectly flat on the surface of the manifold. And now we have that. I am so excited. If you want to learn more, this is totally not sponsored. I just found these in the shop. It came with the business when I bought it. This one is called Big Cert. This one is called Time Cert. They have the same, probably the same company. This one just uses a much smaller insert, and they're both M8s. But hopefully they make these for other sizes as well. I have no idea where you get them. Maybe I'll Google it and see if I can put a link here. But anyway, so excited. We'll pick this up next week. For me, it's Friday in the afternoon, but this is perfect ending of the week. So we'll catch you Monday. All right, guys, 7:45 at night, and I have most of the prep work done on the block. I still have a lot of work to do with the carbide burr because I am going to, well, deburr everything. This cylinder head here, I probably showed you this in an earlier little bit, but I got rid of all the casting flash on here and all the sharp edges. I'm gonna do the same exact thing in the lifter valley and the timing cover and the bottom of the block, just because I feel like deburring the block, it does a few things, but it helps make it a tiny bit stronger because it removes any sort of stress riser. It makes it easier to work with because you're less likely to cut yourself. Some of those edges are razor sharp. And then I'll pay special attention to things like oil passageways. I can kind of port them to make the oil flow a little bit smoother in and out. A little bit of 220 grit sandpaper on a flat aluminum block is what I used while spraying it with penetrating oil, just to kind of help rinse away some of the dirt. That's what I did to clean up the deck surface. And then a 240 grit stone hone with a little bit of penetrating oil. Again, just kind of cleaned up the bores to give the ring something fresh to seat to. You probably don't even have to hone it, but I figured, what the heck, we're going this far, we might as well. Oh, the hone, by the way, you can pick this up on Amazon. I'll throw a link down below. 240 grit, 4 1/4 bore. That's what it looks like. I have not got to the ring gap just yet. I had something come up. I'm actually gonna have to leave town kind of unexpectedly, so I won't get to the measuring the ring gap. We'll see that in the next video when stuff is taken care of. But so far we get a lot of the parts cleaned up. Oh, and real quick, I'll kind of give you guys my plan, because I think I teased that at the beginning of the video. My plan to get this thing put back together. Right now, the crankshaft is off at the machine shop, is just getting polished. They said that the grooves on the crank were minor enough that a polish would take care of it, no need to undersize it. I'm going with a fresh set of bearings, not OEM. I'm going with a Clevite H series bearing if I can find them. And then it's just getting all the rest of the parts we already talked about. ARP head bolts, some MLS head gaskets from Cometic. Stock piston, stock rod, stock crank, because I want to continue with the spirit of the ugly truck, which is essentially a junkyard big block in a ugly old 300,000 mile Silverado with a goal to run 9s.